I consider myself the luckiest person in the world because the work I do is the work I love. I get to write in two genres, that being the historical nonfiction and the metaphysical genre, and I get to be in touch with the spirit world and the world beyond the ordinary that we see every day. I've always been interested, ever since I was a kid, in psychic phenomena and spirit communication. As a matter of fact, I was about 12 years old when I was first introduced to spirit contact. Some folks in my family were playing this game they called table tipping. It was the old-time seance thing. And one of the reasons that I was lucky in the way I got started is because the first time I ever did it, there was a lady present. She was a Hungarian, member of the Hungarian nobility of all things. And we were in Berlin, Germany at the time. And she knew to say a prayer first before you have a seance. And so we always said a prayer before we began a seance. And I realized many, many years later when I entered into this profession that that was a perfect entree for me, because that way you have the guidance and the guardianship of your faith, of God and the angels, if you will, to help you through the process of getting accustomed to spirit contact. Well, I outgrew table tipping real soon, and then I started into what is called automatic writing, which is where you take paper and lay it on the table, you take a writing implement and hold it in your hand, and then you invite the spirits who are present to use your hand to write with. And that was lots of fun, and we did that, and my mom did that too. And then from there, it was quite a while actually before I took the next step, which was into voice channeling. And that was after my husband's death. And I hadn't trusted any of the guides who from the other side who came through well enough, and trust them enough to let them speak through me and use my voice. Every time I would find myself slipping into a trance, I would go, no, no, no. The first person to speak, the first spirit guide to speak through me, was my late husband, Bill Steinhice. He and I had been in almost daily contact by means of automatic writing during the time between his death in 1977 and the time in 1988, early 1988, when I decided to go ahead and do some voice channeling. The next person to speak through me was Arthur Ford, the late great Arthur Ford, who modestly described himself as America's greatest medium of all time. That's Arthur, if you knew Arthur. Bill would say to me, Arthur is here. And I would say, hi, Scotty, because I thought he meant my Uncle Arthur, whom we called Scotty. So finally, Bill said, Arthur is here, through me. And then the second voice, also speaking through me, said, when I said, hi, Scotty, he said, I'm not Scotty. I'm Arthur Ford. And I thought, oh, whoa, well, that's a new thing happening. Of course, I did know the name. But Arthur Ford began to speak through me, and we sort of got acquainted. And I wrote a note to Ruth Montgomery, through whom Arthur had channeled for many, many years, and sent her a message that Arthur and her other guides had asked me to send her. And gracious lady that she is, she sent me back a card that said she had received a message and she had talked to her guides, and they verified, yes, that they had sent it through me, which was wonderful confirmation for me. Not that I doubted for a minute that it was Arthur, because you see, Bill said it was Arthur. I might not have trusted Arthur, but I trusted Bill. You can't fool me about him. Then the next thing I knew, Bill and Arthur came to me and said, Edgar Casey would like to speak to you. And I thought, wow, how about that, Edgar Casey? I mean, I was just blown away, totally. I thought, oh, I'm honored. And so we went through this period of time in which I was saying, oh, Mr. Casey, it's such an honor to meet you. And Edgar would say, well, please, call me Edgar. We went through that. Oh, Cat's coming in here for good energy as we're filming. And then the next thing I knew, well, Edgar Cayce would like me to channel him. Oh, now there's an honor. I was absolutely delighted. I was all nervous about it. And one of the first psychic fairs that I ever did a program at was when I first channeled Edgar Cayce. Arthur came in and introduced him. And then Edgar spoke through me. And there were maybe 100 people there. And it was touching. Many of them were in tears. I was in tears. Edgar was in tears speaking through me because it was such an emotional moment of return. But I thought that this was going to be a special guest appearance where he came in and spoke through me, said a few words, and then after it was over, he would ride off into the metaphysical sunset, and I would be like the little kid on Shane, looking after him, going, "Goodbye, Mr. Cayce. Goodbye, Mr. Cayce," and feeling honored ever after. Well, that's not quite how it worked out. I do feel honored ever after. But when Edgar came in and started talking through me, he never left, and he pretty much never stopped talking. He has been with me ever since, along with Arthur and Bill and a host of other wonderful guides that they have introduced me to. Some of the most profound experiences I've ever had in terms of my personal spirituality and belief have been those opportunities that I have had. They've become commonplace now as part of my work, but the opportunities I have had when the Christ, Mother Mary, the Buddha, and other figures of faith have spoken through me. I remember the first time Mary came in to speak through me. She could barely get a whisper out because I was so nervous that my throat was all tight, and she could just barely say anything at all above a whisper. Now, I have come to know her as a friend, and she said to me, as she says to you, "Welcome." And if I may, let her come in and say a few words now. My dear children, my dear friends, brothers and sisters, I am more a part of your world than you may realize, for I care about the earth and about each one of you. I stand beside you, ready to help, waiting only for you to ask. Ask me, and I will help you. She's stepping back. Well, believe me, I, Laurel, have had to ask her and the others for so much help as we go along. They've taught me about so many things that I never knew anything about before. Here I was, the new kid on the block as far as being a channel is concerned, with 40 years of spirit communication experience. And yet there were so many things I knew nothing of. I thought of myself as a communicator, not a healer. And the next thing I knew, the guides coming through me were doing healing work. Wow, that was a real milestone for me. I bonded with Edgar Cayce easily because I had read his books and the books about him for many years, and I knew him as the man who had the same dreams that I had. For many of the dreams that are in Edgar Cayce's books from the 1930s and 40s, I've also had those same dreams, and I thought, wow, he knows the same things I know. This is fabulous. Well, yes, he knows some of the same things I know, and he knows so much more beyond that. It's been very much a learning experience. We have done some writing together, including this one, also Edgar Cayce's Self-Healing Tips. I am most fortunate to be doing the work I love.